from Welsh parents. When I was a boy in an English school, I made the following agreeable discovery: that by immense good fortune, I had been born into the finest home, in the finest city, in the finest country in the world. Yes, and I attended the one true church and heard sermons by the one best preacher precisely at a time when churches were truer and preachers better than they had ever been since life began. Moreover, this was only the beginning of the matter. For it was also revealed to me that in all contests, struggles, quarrels, and wars, the English had always been right. Except where they had been opposed to the Welsh. In this latter case, I found that everything was still all right, because the Welsh, although frequently defeated by the English, had invariably somehow turned defeat into a subtle kind of victory, so that it was better to be Welsh and defeated by the English than to be of any other stock. It also seemed natural that, second only to the British, the Americans made excellent merchandise. Goods manufactured elsewhere were not good, and those manufactured in Germany were particularly poor, as evidenced by the letters stamped upon them DRGM, which meant disgustingly rotten German make. Curiously enough, people like the Germans and French composed good music and painted famous pictures, and they even had railway trains, but of course they did not run them on time, and some of them were far from safe. Such was the world of my childhood, and such, dear friends, with one variation or another, was the world of your childhood, even if you were so fortunate as to have been born into a more cosmopolitan environment, or so richly favoured, shall we say, as to have been brought up Unitarian. The advantage is barely worth mentioning. It is only by unceasing effort, strenuous from first to last, that any of us breaks down the prison of his or her provincialism.
We all have stories about our family of origin. Mine begins near the small town of Parkville, Ohio. Small as the town was, we didn't actually live in it, but along quiet Hoover Avenue in a farmhouse surrounded by hundreds of acres of corn. Hoover Avenue was a gravel road on which the occasional car traveled, but just as often you could hear the clip-clop of horses and buggies going by. There were Amish families in the area, living quiet, honest, and and simple lives. As a kid, I thought we lived in a rather diverse neighborhood. We had 4 Amish families who lived on Hoover Avenue with horses and buggies instead of cars. However, they were 2 different kinds of Amish. You know, like there are different kinds of Presbyterians and Lutherans and Baptists. Well, we had 2 different kinds of Amish on our street. Both were trying to live simple lives and were quite clear about exactly how to do so, but in slightly different ways. They were clear about the differences, but none of the rest of us were. Then there was the Beachy Amish family. Folks from the Beachy Amish church were permitted to drive cars, but only cars painted black to avoid the sin of pride that often comes with bright-colored cars. There were also 2 conservative Mennonite families. Mine was one of them. We drove cars of any color. Not that we were proud, of course. We kept to ourselves, having a keen sense of all that could lead one astray in the world: smoking, drinking, playing cards, and of course, dancing. Worse yet were those ever-dangerous pool halls where reportedly people engaged in smoking, drinking, playing cards, and dancing, all under the same roof. Horrors. Now, just across the street was a family who were members of an independent Mennonite church. They enjoyed such a level of certainty about their religion that it was hard for them to relate to the rest of us on Hoover Avenue. And right next door to us lived dear old Maddie Hall, who admittedly was a wonderful soul, but in truth she left us all feeling vaguely uneasy. She was one of those liberal mainstream Mennonites that you couldn't really tell apart from a good Roman Catholic. On Hoover Avenue, each family had a sense of right and wrong. Each one of us had a real sense of clarity about our beliefs. So in our neighborhood, count them, there were 3 kinds of Amish and 3 varieties of Mennonites. I tell you, already in the 60s, we were way ahead of the diversity curve. Yes, we all have stories about our families of origin. We also have stories about our families of choice. We gravitate toward people with similar perspectives or interests. Perhaps it's as simple as chemistry that draws us to one another. A couple of weekends ago, I spent the weekend in Vermont, a long weekend, with members of my family of choice. Randy and I have been friends since we both were teaching high school students in the 1980s. Ken and John are like brothers to me, perhaps older brothers. They just celebrated their 30th anniversary last month. And I met my friend Jonathan at a series of retreats that were held in the Pocono Mountains in the 90s. Together, we spent a long weekend telling tall tales and catching up on our lives and enjoying the beauty of a New England fall with a wood-burning stove guarding against the chill of the cottage. Family of origin, family of choice. I'm reminded of the line from To Kill a Mockingbird. You can choose your friends, but you sure can't choose your family. We all have stories about our family of origin. And I suspect we all have stories about our faith of origin. Faith of origin, faith of choice. You can choose your faith as an adult, but you sure can't choose the faith into which you were raised. My question today is this: how do you understand and think about your faith of origin? We all grew up, I'm fairly certain, with some type of faith. Maybe the faith you grew up with was that religion was for people with soft heads. Nonetheless, here you are in a religious community on Sunday morning. What do you make of your earlier clarity, of your faith of origin? In William Bridges' book, The Way of Transition, I've spoken about this before. He argues that change and transition, though often used as synonyms, are actually 2 very different matters altogether. Change is a situational shift. Getting a new boss is a change, and so is receiving a promotion or losing your job. Moving to a different house is a change, and so is remodeling your house or losing it in a fire. Bridges would probably agree that leaving a faith community is a change, as is joining a new one or visiting one for the very first time. Change is a situational shift. Transition, on the other hand, Bridges writes, is the process of letting go of the way things used to be and then taking hold of the way they subsequently become. And in between the letting go and the taking hold again, there is a chaotic but potentially creative neutral zone where things certainly aren't the old way, but aren't really a new way yet either. This three-phase process, ending, the neutral zone, and beginning again, this Bridges calls transition. Change is a situational shift, transition a process. And so my question again for you today, how do you understand or think about your faith of origin? Is it something you're perhaps ashamed of, or angry about being raised in a particular way, or feel some remorse over in some way? I think it would be an interesting exercise to write down things that you had clarity about when you were 20. I bet we'd all find some things that no longer seem true, or at best, as we knew them at age 20, are incomplete. We know more now. What was your faith like when you were 20? It could possibly be instructive also to think about what faith was like when you were 40. Some of us can think about what it's like at age 60, and a few of us perhaps can talk about what faith is like at age 80. But almost certainly faith at age 80 is different than faith at age 20. At least we hope so, if our spiritual lives are growing. So I wonder, are you today in the letting go stage, when a faith which had been meaningful, which had been a source of grounding, which had provided some clarity, a paradigm for your life, no longer is? Are you in that letting go stage? Or are you in the uncomfortable but potentially creative neutral zone, where things certainly are not the old way, but aren't really a new way yet either? I imagine many of us came to Unitarian Universalism while we were in the neutral zone. I certainly did. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am at the welcome I received from Reverend Susan, who met me for coffee, and from so many of you who not only made me feel at home here, but have helped me to become part of this faith community. Or are you in the process of taking hold of a new way of faith? We're probably all familiar with people who've made a change, but clearly not done the more thoughtful and challenging work of transition. The divorce is final, but a great deal of energy is spent, even years later, fuming about how we were wronged, with little insight into our own role in the matter. Oh, the change has taken place, but the transition has not. Or the divorce is final, and a few months later we begin with the next relationship without the benefit of insight into our role in the demise of the relationship that just ended. There is a change, all right, but the internal change or transition has not taken place. Perhaps you've had a coworker who was downsized out of a previous job that he loved, and day after day he mentions that when I was at Honeywell, we did it this way or that way or some better way, without taking responsibility for the fact that he's not at Honeywell anymore, and he has a role in making things better in this job and in this place. Or perhaps there's the daily barrage of things like, you can't believe what a bunch of idiots work over there at Honeywell. Failing to remember that not so long ago you were one of those folks. Change has taken place, the transition, it's still to come. Friends, it's pretty easy to make changes in our lives, to leave one faith community and enter another, but the challenge and possibility lie in navigating that process of transition. And this is true definitely in all of life, but particularly in our faith life. And my contention today is that if we are unable to have a sense of humility about all of the steps and seasons in our faith journey, it will be hard for us to find today and tomorrow's joy where we are right now. If we're unable to have a sense of humility for the steps in our own faith journey, it may be hard for us within the context of a new faith community to really engage and to offer the best that we have now and from what we have learned from our past. We all have stories about our families of origin. We all have stories about our faith of origin. But I'm reminded of the line in To Kill a Mockingbird. You can choose your friends, but you sure can't choose your family. And they're still kin to you no matter whether you acknowledge them or not. And it makes you look downright silly when you don't.
The ushers, please come forward. Each week we take an offering to sustain and strengthen the ministry of this congregation. I invite you to read with me the words of dedication to our offering, which you will find in your order of service. With gratitude for the abundance of our own lives, we give for the life and mission of this congregation.
Please rise in the body of spirit. Our closing hymn is the New Year's hymn, The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time, number 350.
after which you're invited to the Johnson Room for a time of fellowship out the doors to your left and into the door to your left. Our closing words are by Unitarian Universalist minister Barbara Wells. O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love to weave new patterns of truth and justice into a web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting. May it be so. May it be seated.
I was excited to find out all these string players would be here today. So I wrote this quick arrangement of a song by Eddie Vedder that he wrote for the movie Into the Wild. Definitely about somebody changing their beliefs when they grew up. Hope you enjoy it. Such is the way of the world, you can never know just where to put all your faith and how will it grow. Gonna rise up, burning black holes in dark memories. Gonna rise up, turning mistakes into gold. Such is the passage of time, too fast to fall. Suddenly swallowed by silence, lo and behold.
called the North Canyon, and then they got too big, and then they split it between the two. Oh, maybe when it was maybe later. There was someone paying up to at least he's looked at they don't really care where you go. Well, it sounds like even SEC's big bucks. No? God, I hope so. From your mouth to somebody's ears.